Bula.
Bula.
I just want to ask a small question. Regarding the real estate.
Sure.
Real estate, the law regarding real estate and the real estate operators. I've been wondering about this very particular sensitive issue. There's not much discussion on this matter. I just want to ask on behalf of the people of Fiji, what is the stand of the government? I'm also, I guess, most probably that past government has not addressed this issue often, or it's almost like something they would like to stay away from. Regarding the price of properties, it has gone up many folds. I think most mature audience here today, if they recall, the prices of properties has jumped up many folds, say 500% to 700% for the last 30 or 35 years ago. And I think it would be the dreams of many people in Fiji. Long after your government have left, and a few more government will come into place, and that is a reality. That it will only be a dream for them to own one of these double-story or this kind of reasonable strata-type properties. Most of them will be relegated to squatter and all these popular unofficial housing place. So, sir, just explain a bit on that.
Were you here from the beginning of my presentation? I don't think you were.
Yes, of course, I came late, sir.
From the beginning?
Yes.
Okay. You may have heard that I talked about strata title. Were you here when I talked about strata title?
No, I think I came much later.
Yeah, so you weren't here from the beginning. That was my question. You weren't here from the beginning because I didn't see you from the beginning. So as I mentioned in the presentation, in particular when I spoke about this part here, about the grants we are giving, I completely agree with you that at one point in time, the pricing of homes got out of control. Because there was no restriction on the ownership, or the purchase of residential properties by foreigners. So we actually had foreigners walking in with suitcases full of money and basically buying up all the residential properties. So one of the things that we have done, it's now illegal for a foreigner to buy a residential property within the municipalities. They cannot own any residential property. There's a law against it. So if you see, the prices have actually stabilized as a result of that. Right? You would admit, I don't know if you're in the real estate market or not. It has stabilized as a result of that law being brought in. Those of you who do not know, we've actually brought about that law. We also said that if a foreigner wants to buy a residential property outside the municipal areas, they must spend at least $250,000 on that land and build within 2 years of buying that property or that land. Because what we found, a lot of foreigners were actually speculating. So for example, they would buy land in Savu Savu for X number of dollars, they would sell the land offshore. The money would be paid to them offshore, and they sell it in US dollars. Then that person would sell it to somebody else and keep on speculating. So basically the price of land just got out of hand. So, as I mentioned, before you came, I had mentioned that, of course, the population is growing now in Fiji. So, notwithstanding those restrictions, the population is growing. More and more young people want to own properties too. So what I said earlier on, when I mentioned this part, I said we need to change our concept about what is a house. Right. Our traditional way of looking at housing is that a block of land and a house on it. But owning a property can also mean owning strata title. And that's one of the things we are looking at. The reality of the matter is that you probably can go and buy a piece of property at a reasonable price, say somewhere near, going this way, Korovo, piece of land. But if you work in Suva, it's very difficult to travel. So because as the cities grow and more people work in the cities and as urbanization grows, then of course there's a lot more pressure on metropolitan cities and the suburbs around that. And that's a reality we cannot escape. So what do? We build, for example, 4-lane roads. so people can travel a lot more easier. We also need to tell the people of Fiji they need to start owning strata title. You can get a strata title, 99-year lease. You can get body corporates through a strata title on body corporate management of flats. So that's what I was mentioning earlier on. The way to address that, and in fact we're talking to FNPF about it, looking at various projects, we want young people to buy, for example, the first property, maybe a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, strata title. As they do well, they should be able to resell that property, move into a bigger flat or bigger house on a strata title basis. Eventually they may actually get a land with housing on it. So that's the way to address that. You cannot go and price control it. It'll be very difficult. If you're in the real estate business, you would know that. Very difficult to price control. But it's market driven. So we as government are now saying, in order for people to give them that lift to own properties, we give them grants. Make $15,000 payment towards you building your first home. And if you actually buy a strata title from an approved developer, we'll still give you $15,000 even though you have not made it. Because it's an approved strata title developer. And we give $10,000. In fact, we amended the FNPF law to allow people who are members of a landowning unit. So if I belong to a landowning unit and I want to build a house on my land, I'm a member of VKB, I belong to the landowning unit, you can now withdraw from FNPF to build on the land because nobody can take away their possessory rights away from you. Because you have possessory rights over that Matangali or Itoka owned land. So that's what we've done in that respect, to answer your question. Okay, anybody else? Oh, there's a lady here.
Sir, on that note, I just want to ask the question on the own strata titles. What is the condition for just an undergraduate that just graduated from a university? I'm asking about the condition, stating that they don't have any capital or any money to start off. So that grant, what is the condition?
Oh, this grant here?
Yes, sir.
No, this one is, for example, obviously if you finish university, you don't have any savings, you may not necessarily be able to buy that immediately, right? You have to go through a bank. So assuming, see, the whole issue is to make the stockpile of homes available. So assuming if there's a 1-bedroom flat available, that's being sold for $75,000, right? So normally when you go to a bank, the bank requires about 20% deposit. Some banks require 10%. So because you are young, they may say, okay, 10% deposit. So which is 10% of 75,000 is $7,500, right? So if they say, okay, maybe 15%, you bring along, $12,000 as your down payment. So assuming I'm fresh out of university or I've been there for 2 years, I'm working for 2 years. So the bank will do an assessment. They'll say, okay, you are earning $35,000 a year or $30,000 a year. We can see that this is your expenses. If you bring us a down payment of $15,000 a year, because you're 25 years old, we can give you a 30 or 35-year loan. You'll be able to do the repayments. Yes, we can give the loan because you'll say to them, I also want to apply for this. So this can go towards your down payment, right? If you, for example, buy a property after 2-3 years, having an FNPF membership, you'd have accumulated a little bit of money. So FNPF will allow you to withdraw some of your FNPF funds if you're buying a house. So that can also go towards your down payment. That's how the system works. So you must go through a bank to be eligible for these. Because the bank will do the assessment whether you can do the repayments or not. A lot of people have benefited from it. But now, of course, we hope more people benefit from it because we've now broken it down. Those below $50,000 and those up to $100,000 too. Get different amounts. You'll see the full details in the Fiji Sun. We published it. They've also got numbers of people in the Ministry of Housing and Community Development who can give you further details on that. But that's how the system works. Okay?
Okay, Vinaka, sir. I'm still on that topic, eh?
Sure.
See, because of the complication we now have on this particular issue, And the government, I think the government is the only entity that can address this issue, just to make it a little more comfortable, because it has all the powers and all the means. Regarding the real estate, if the government can address this legislative aspect of the industry, because now we still are sitting on 2006 real estate agent legislation. If the government can address, for example, these real estate agents, just to see that they are following the rules, they are playing within the rules, and that not to make the exacerbate the issue, which is already we are now in it. Just to, if the government can address the law part, the part of how they operate, the real estate agents. Like we have hookers, we have all these fancy glossy things on the roadside with the exorbitant pricing that they have, they're dealing with now. The hotspots, all these few companies. Because I believe while we were having Taitus real estate, all these local real estate people, the price wasn't like this. No, just to provide the contrast. When these some of these glossy partakers are coming into the industry in Fiji, I'm not sure where they initially come from. Maybe I hope they are from Fiji, local people. The prices have really skyrocketed. Prices that were unheard in Fiji before, like say 7, 10, 12 years ago. That's almost like New Zealand, comparable to New Zealand, Australia, where prices are sitting at 1.5, 1.7, 2 point something million. The prices which used to be sitting at $370,000, a double-story building or say 3-bedroom house. If the government can just try to review the law and try to control these players, to keep an eye. Because, for example, I went to the real estate agent board because I'm doing a research on this particular area.
Are you a real estate agent?
No, I'm a law student. I'm doing economics and law. I'm doing a small thesis on the legal framework,
okay,
and the pricing on real estate,
okay,
in Fiji. I went there and they said, for instance, the when they do a dealing with a buyer, they don't have any law in place where they are regulated in terms of how much they get for each particular transaction. So they say that it's left for them to decide on how much
commission.
Yes, that's right, exactly, the commission. So even the officer there, I won't mention the name, he said it's not regulated. The commission is not regulated. So these are some of the small things that the government needs to look into, because these are very important issue. We are all studying here, even the minister, anybody. The outcome is to get a good house at the end of the day. No matter how much business you are running, a dwelling is a very important matter to every human being in this planet. So that's why I'm looking at the issue. If the government can improve the law, because 2006 legislation, I think, is not very. It's only talking about where they operate and small things like that. It does not really touch on to the how to look after them, how they operate. So if the government can just look into this law, if it can improve it, it would at least lessen what's happening in this industry.
Okay, have you finished?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, look, I think what you're still aiming for price control. And you cannot get price control in the real estate market. It's very difficult.
Of course.
Very difficult to market. Look, I don't want this to become just you and I. There are other people here.
Oh.
And let's talk about that. You've raised some issues. I take note of some of the things you're saying. But the reality is that from our position, we need to be able to ensure that people have access to housing. And we cannot, for example, start saying that the only reason why only way we'll be able to bring down the price of houses is by controlling real estate agents or the commission they charge. That does not actually make a huge difference. The reality is that what makes a difference is because there was a huge demand by foreigners who wanted to buy real estate property in municipalities. They're turning up with the sacks full of cash and buying properties out of this world prices. That of course then jolted up the prices, and we saw that. We've reacted now to that by ensuring that foreigners cannot own real estate properties in municipalities. And many countries are beginning to do that. In Australia, for example, you can't buy. You cannot buy, a foreigner cannot buy what they call dirt if you're not a citizen of Australia. You can only buy strata title. That's why if you watch ABC television late at night, they're always advertising strata title apartments. That's for the foreign market. So one of the ways that we have said, of course, from our perspective, we are giving these grants. We're also looking at building strata titling apartments, so at least people can also start buying at least their first property. The main issue is buying your first asset. Now the other thing that you, if you have not touched about, that people really should be thinking about, in particular if you're doing a thesis. If you look at Rewai and Rewanga, you look at Nambua, you look at Matavoli, you look at Tawakumbu in Lautoka. When the previous housing authority managements and the governments, they did what they call low-cost housing. Right, low-cost housing. So they build all these terraces and all of that. The problem with low-cost housing is you create ghettos. You see, because you say, oh, this entire area is low-cost housing. So even if I buy a low-cost housing property, I do not have the ability, if I want to sell this property in a few years' time, my real estate is not appreciating. See, when you create ghettos, you'll never get your property price increasing. I'll tell you what the Singaporeans have done. You should look at the Singapore model. The Singaporeans, of course, Singapore is about 700 square kilometers. To put into perspective, Tavyuni is about 420 square kilometers. That's how small Singapore is. So obviously Singaporeans built upwards. They could not go horizontally. They went vertically. Even when they went vertically, you may have a big floor, one floor. In that floor, they have different price points. 3-bedroom apartment, 2-bedroom apartment, 1-bedroom apartment, 2-bedroom fancy apartment, 2-bedroom, what you call affordable housing apartment. So everybody with different income levels were mixed on one floor, in one building block. What that meant is that the property prices did not depreciate. If you build one block of building, or what you call low-cost housing, they will have not a good resale value. That's why people you see living in Rewai and some other place in Nambua, in Tawakumbu, they don't have the resale value. If they want to sell it, people don't want to go there. So the trick about real estate is that when you do a housing project, you must ensure that when a person buys the property, no matter what happens, the value of the property must increase. Because you've invested that money. If I bought a 1-bedroom apartment, I want to be able to resell my property so I can buy my 2-bedroom apartment. When I'm doing well, I'm now married, I've got kids, my kids may be working, I want to be able to sell the 2-bedroom apartment and maybe buy a block of land with a house on it. So that's the real trick about real estate, if we want everybody to own their properties. That's something to look at too. Very important. Okay? Anybody else? Thank you. 2 ladies here.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
My question is based on the TEL scheme, and I'm sure most of the students and most of the families are more happy about the budget in regards to the education. My question is, if a student who is in tertiary level and does not qualify for the criteria that is labeled with the TEL scheme, are they able to be recognized to apply for the TEL scheme?
So give me an example of how they would not be.
For example, in my case,
yes.
I have done foundation in Central Queensland University, and when I wanted to apply for the TELS loan, and then they said that I don't qualify because I graduated from CQ. So CQ is not listed in one of the schools that is eligible for the TEL scheme. So my question is, if I'm already here in FNU and I'm doing my graduate studies, why don't they, why is it that I'm not eligible for the TEL scheme?
At the moment, the way that the law is done is that we recognize foundation from USP, correct me if I'm wrong, and we recognize year 13. CQU is not as part one of the listed universities. And we have this accreditation from the higher education, the board, higher education board. They are the ones who actually do the certification. So for you to be eligible for TELS, there are two ways. One is that you should have completed year 13 or equivalent foundation at USP to get TELS. Or you did year 12 and there's about 2 or 3 courses at FNU in engineering that you can actually gain direct entry to and you'll get TELS. We made that amendment, I think, about 18 months ago. So at the moment, that's the position. In the same way, for example, we've had people who've said to us, just prior to 2014, they said, oh, look, we finished it, our year 13. But because it was not applicable from 2014, they did the qualification in 2013, or 2012 or 2011, we could not allow them to do so. Because you have to understand, when we do this budgeting, we actually factor in all the costs. So at the moment, CQU is not one of the recognized universities. In the same way, we had somebody who said to us today at Samambula campus, they said, I'm doing a certificate at FNU, but I'm not recognized. And we said, did you finish year 13? He said, no. So therefore, TELS is not payable for that also. Majority of the students over here would have completed year 13, or they would have done foundation. They would not have done it at CQU. I assume you'd be one of the few people. So that's the current position, unfortunately.
So is it due to the, I've seen there's an increase in budget with education, so I'm just asking, would you be, the government consider students who are facing these difficult times trying to pay for their education?
In this year's budget is not factored in this year's budget. So you see, that increase in amount that we've given over here, that amount there and this overall amount, 1.35, takes into account all the current requirements, all the people who've done foundation year 13. Something to look forward to in the following financial year we can, but I cannot say just because we've increased it, therefore you'll qualify for it. Because we don't have the space, because the way we do the budget is very tightly done. So we've taken into account all the students who will be coming out of foundation year 13, and this will be the cost for that. But we've not taken into account, say, somebody like yourself who may have got CQU. I mean, I had a parent the other day who said to me that they did their studies at University of Fiji, and he's now not getting his certificate because he did his studies in 2012, in 2013, when we did not have TELS or toppers. He said, can you pay for it? I said, no, we can't. Because if we do it, there's probably another 10,000 people. So where will we get the money for that? Or even if we do it, whenever we do any costings, we actually know exactly how much it will cost us. We have to know that. Otherwise, the budget has no meaning. Then we have to run what we call mini budgets, go and get more money from somewhere, which we cannot do, which we can't do.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Bula, sir. Thank you so much for the presentation. That was very enlightening. My question is, I've noticed that you've allocated $19 million to capital for higher education institutions. I think my question is there a possibility that the library can be extended in terms of the infrastructure, but also like updated books for law? Because I think we still have some of those books, which is like the 2nd edition, and the updated one is like 6th or 7th edition. So that's
okay.
One of my questions, including, can we also have a gym? This is the place to ask, right?
I just want to correct you. We have not given $90 million for capital. That's for rehabilitation of schools from the Winston. We have given grants to higher education institution $19 million. 19. Oh, I thought you said 90. Oh, sorry, my apologies. Nasinu Campus is getting $4 million. So, are you at Nasinu?
Yes, I am.
So, I do not know whether there's a gym there or not. I don't know. No, I don't know whether in that 4 million they've got a gym or not. Oh, it's included? There you go, she knows, there's a gym included. So next time I see you, you'll be very fit. But with the books now, again, you know, I was talking to your VC, and just on a short walk from the meeting room to here, and he was saying about how they're looking at improving many of the library facilities. He did actually specifically say to me about library facilities, and we're also very keen. I mean, I am a bit concerned. We are a bit concerned about some of the facilities at FNU. I've had complaints from the Samambula campus where there are certain materials aren't available for them to complete their projects, which is of huge concern to us. One of the other issues that has been raised with us continuously the last time and also this time about the qualifications of some of the lecturers. That has also been raised with us. So we are very keenly looking forward to working a bit more closely with your university council, with the new council. Hopefully we'll get some good people. You know, one of the reasons why we changed the composition of the council is because we found a lot of these people, because they came from, as representatives of different organizations, when they came to the university council, they were flying the flag of their organization. When you come to the council, you should be flying the flag only of FNU. Yes. And that was the problem. As you can see, I have a very enthusiastic person supporting me in that. But it's a fact. It's a fact. So when you get appointed to a board or a council, your entire fiduciary duty is to that organization, not somebody else. Yeah? So this is why, you know, I have to say this to you, Ketan. He is your president of the student union. I am very disappointed about this, because you see, he's representing a particular political party. Now, and I've said this before, I've said to various student organizations, when you represent a student organization, you should be completely independent. And in that way, I've also said that we are willing to fund student organizations if they are truly student organization based. Not flying the flag of some political party. That's the job of politicians. If you are the representative of a student organization, you should be representing your students, your members, not NFP or whichever party you fly the flag for, or some faith-based organization. You should not be doing that. I think you're doing a huge injustice, because you people come here to a university environment and you're here focus on your academic qualifications and improving your student environment. That's very critical. So we are quite willing to help, but we need to make sure that we, you know, cross the T's and dot the I's and do it well. So you see, I understand what you're saying. The VC has assured us that he's going to improve, for example, library services. It is a pity that you cannot use, you know, you have outdated books. The Solicitor General is sitting there at the back. I can tell you that we have the best legal libraries in Fiji. It's a very good library. And with his concurrence, because he's the guy who controls the money, he's shaking his head saying, no, he can't give you access. But we could have, if you can make special, representations. SG, you want to say something about that? Yeah, please give him a mic.
Minister, I just wanted to add that there was representation from the FNU Law School for FNU students to visit our library, because we have a fairly well set up library. And then we approved that for FNU law students to come and visit our library. Unfortunately, we then were told that there were no takers.
There you go. Nobody wanted to go.
There are very few takers. So look, we have said to the person who's coordinating at FNU Law School that we are happy when the students, you know, are available. We'd be happy to accommodate, and then perhaps also have a session with them in terms of what we have. Yes. And what are some of the journals that we have, and how FNU library or the law school can also build its program. Yeah?
So I urge you to, maybe you can, as students, if your lecturers aren't doing it, maybe you can write to the Solicitor General. His email address is very easy. sharvada.sharma@gmail.com. And then you can make, but I know, please don't come all at different times. You can make a representation to him. They can give you a tour. We also have some very good librarians. And in fact, I think sometimes the judges want to come and use our libraries too, SG. So it's a very good library. We've actually spent quite a lot of money in it and on it. As you know, also now we have the revised laws of Fiji, which is now up to date. It gets updated on a quarterly basis, SG? On a quarterly basis, all the laws are updated quarterly. Do you have a copy of the revised laws of Fiji? Sorry? You don't have one? You don't have a set? You have the red books? Yes. Yeah, that's the revised laws of Fiji.
You just have the content of all the laws, but not the revised one.
You don't have the actual laws?
No, we don't have the revised laws at the moment because we don't have a library that is mainly for law. It's all like we have a library that's for everyone.
Oh. But you could have a law section. Do you have a law section?
Yes, but it has other books apart from the law books. Other law books apart from the law books. Yeah, that actually have all the laws of Fiji.
Okay, we make note of it in SG.
We have in fact donated a set to FNU as well, Minister.
Yeah, we donated a set. So please speak in the mic.
Okay, sorry, sir, I think everybody's getting us a little bit wrong. We're talking about like the other laws, like laws in the Pacific, common law, law and equity, like those research books, the updated ones. So we'll have like some that are second editions. Meanwhile, at other universities, they'll be looking at the 6th edition or the 9th edition, but we still have the 2nd edition. It's not updated. So I think that was like our issue, that we wanted like, some new research books.
Do you have online access?
Yes, we have online access.
Now this problem solved.
We are accessing to Nexus and Lexus, but it doesn't work all the time.
Okay,
Yes.
have you? I think now with your Wi-Fi on your phone, you have free Wi-Fi. You can access that on your phones. Also, I think because of ARNet, because you're getting ARNet put in the campus, you should be able to increase the speed. Sorry?
Sorry, I said, since you're the Minister for Justice, can you donate some books to the library?
We have donated $65 million. Okay, anybody else? Oh, Ketan.
Bula, AG.
Bula.
I think there is a very big confusion about Ketan Lal supporting a particular political party. However, I will be very happy to clear the doubts. Representing students, I think the government has given a very good budget this year, and we have seen that wireless is on board and we are going to get free Wi-Fi. I hope students use that opportunity in using YouTube for your research, nothing else. However, Honorable Minister for Education, I would like to put 4 points on the floor here, and this comes all the way from Ba and most of our campuses. We are getting better education or access to better education, a lot of improvement in our hotels sector. Students are able to come to school. However, Ba campus is facing bus service issues, and if you request the Ministry of Education to liaise, if you can provide liaise with the appropriate authorities and get more bus services for our students who are traveling from Raki Raki, Tavua to Ba, and from Ba town to the campus in, which is quite inside. That's number one. Number two, most of our campuses, street lights are quite old, and we have a lot of female students who use our campuses at night. Some of our classes go up till 10 p.m. And if we are requesting, just like the government initiative of getting street lights all around Fiji, if the government can also put up street lights in our campuses so that we can have a bright night with a bright future. Number three, sir, as you know, there's a number of accidents around Fiji, and looking at Nasinu Campus, we don't have a zebra crossing, and this has been there for many years, and students get stranded in the middle of the road when there is traffic from both ways. We're requesting if there can be zebra crossing or lights on the road so that students are able to cross safely. Not only in Nasinu Campus, most of the campus do not have that, including Coronivia Campus. They do not have a bus shelter. Most of our students have to run from the main highway to the campus, which is right inside. I'm requesting if the government can also look into that. More of number four, and this has been a concern for the students of FNU, and I'm sure the government has given a lot of money to the university. In the next budget, maybe we're requesting if the government can put in money for hostels. We need more hostels in campuses like Ba, where students travel from Tavua, Raki far place. They have to wake up in the morning. They can opt for accommodation in the Ba campus, and more of we need hostels in Nasinu Campus, which students come all the way from Vanuatu to study here as well. Those are the four things we request from the government at this moment. I'm sure that the students are very happy to see that we have the free internet service and so on with the other benefits we're getting with more like veterinary labs and stuff. With all this words, sir, thank you very much for your presence here as well.
Any internal infrastructure within a campus is actually funded by the university grant itself or the capital grant. So if you've got lighting issues within the campus, it's not government's job to do it. Government is giving $65 million plus we're giving, for example, these capital grants here. So that's the university's responsibility. The other issue which is of course of concern to us, which I did not touch upon because there is no budgetary allocation per se regarding that, is the issue of housing or accommodation. It is a big issue. In fact, we've had discussion with USP, we've had discussion with your VC, the chair of your council, and also we are talking to FNPF at the moment as to how we can get. You see, the issue is not this. If you want to look at good economics, it's not just a question of saying, can government give some money to build some hostels? Because it is expensive to do so. So the idea is to bring in an organization like FNPF, an organization like somebody from the private sector to have a collaboration. And indeed, your VC and your chair were talking to some private sector investors to put up more hostels. We have, of course, people currently sharing rooms. You know, some of the universities is pretty bad, like you have like 7 or 8 people to a room because of the fact that there is not enough accommodation available. So that's something very much on our radar. The issue regarding Coronivia not having a bus shelter, because you know they're putting a 4-lane road. So once the 4-lane road is done, then you'll have bus shelters, I can assure you of that. But we can't put it in now. As you can see, you've got your bus shelter here, which was requested of us. We put that in. Regarding the crossing, I mean, again, these things need to be looked at, whether people should cross at the Valelevu junction. And again, there's of course no proper crossing there. There's no lights on this side. But that's something that we've already raised with the FRA. Regarding transportation to Ba campus, from Tavua and Reki, people have to catch the normal bus. If the university wants to provide an internal mechanism through which, that's the university's responsibility. But as you said, we've increased the bus fare now. It's gone up to $30 for the university students. Now, what was the fourth point you raised? No, again, the hostel thing is issue everywhere. So we need to look at the hostel arrangement overall. Now, the thing is, we need to also build standardized, accommodation. So when you have standardized or templated buildings being built, the cost actually comes down. So, I mean, these are some of the things we're looking at, but I still say that you are politically aligned because you do share your posts from a political perspective, and perceptions do matter. You need to be careful about that. You want to be going pictured with political parties or, various based organizations, then you need to be careful because your fiduciary duty is to your student association, not to some political party, a political party leader or some faith-based organization that has got religious vilification. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. And you're associating yourself with them. And I'm saying this openly to you. And I've said this to you before. You should not do that. In the same way, if anybody holds a public position, your fiduciary duty is to that organization, not anybody else. You cannot compromise that. And you have to understand that. And people are talking about that. It is a question of perception. Somebody else? Sorry, where? Oh, over there. Thanks.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
My question today is just on the topic of minimum wage.
Sure.
I've been reading a lot on social media that various other political parties such as Sodalpa and NFP are saying that they will raise the minimum wage up to $4 or $5. Now, what I would like to know, and I'm sure what most of these young people here who are about to hit the workforce would like to know, is can they do this, and can the economy support this, or is this just a lie?
Minimum wage, when you talk about national minimum wage in that context, it's for unskilled work. Right. Now, there are two types of employment. One is what you call unskilled work, and the other one is what you call skilled work. So people, for example, have already minimum wage at $5 an hour, $6 an hour, $3.45 an hour, $3.30 an hour. Some people have $7 an hour, depending on your profession. There are 10 different, what we call sectorial wages, and they have all minimum wage. So if you work as a waiter, your minimum wage is, I think, about $3.50 or $3.40 an hour, minimum. It's not $2.68. The $2.68 is minimum wage for unskilled workforce. Now, prior to 2013, when the Benny Marama government introduced minimum wage, there was no minimum wage for unskilled workers. You know, the guy who comes around the house, he says, "Can I cut grass?" People give $5, $7. People have what we call in Fiji, unfortunately, we say house girls. That's considered to be unskilled work. So there was no minimum wage for them. So the Benny Marama government for the first time introduced minimum wage at $2 an hour. Then they said, we'll review it. So it went up to $2.32, $2.36 an hour. Then they did another review. It's gone up to $2.68 an hour. So that minimum wage, don't mistake it as the minimum wage for everybody. It's minimum wage for unskilled work. So somebody, for example, who goes to technical college or attends, for example, your university and does automotive engineering. The minimum wage for a mechanic is different. It could be $5, $6 an hour. But depending on the market, like at the moment, welders, people who do welding in Suva, they're getting paid $16, $17 an hour. But the minimum wage is something like $6 an hour. But because there's a huge demand for them, they're getting paid that much because they can demand that much. So don't mistake that. Now, if, for example, what we have said is that we need to review not just minimum wage for unskilled people, but minimum wage for everybody. But we need to do it properly. You see, 130,000 Fijians today in Fiji work for themselves. They don't work for anybody else. So you see the lady who may be in Wainandoi selling flowers, the guy who's selling boo by the roadside, the people who are selling vegetables by the road, they're self-employed. They'll go, they'll buy vegetables from some guy, then they come, they put a markup and they sell it by the roadside. If you're going to increase minimum wage for them, they're not going to pay themselves $5 an hour because that's their business. But you have to understand this. You see, if you are going to say, hypothetically, that you're going to now increase minimum wage for unskilled people from $2.68 to say $5, that's almost doubled, right? You double it to $5 an hour. A person currently who is a skilled person, maybe say a boiler maker or whatever, and is getting paid $6 an hour. he'll turn around and say, hey, I have to go through 2 years of training to become a boiler maker. My minimum rate is $6 an hour. Now this person who's unskilled is now getting $5 an hour. I want mine double to $12 an hour. Of course, it's natural. So the person who's getting currently $7 an hour, getting $4 an hour, they'll want this double too. What will be the impact of it? It has what you call an inflationary impact. So when you go to the supermarket to buy your groceries, the supermarket guy who now has to double the salary of the person who stocks the shelf, double the salary of the lady at the cash register, what do you think he's going to do? That increased cost of his, what is he going to do with that? He's not going to pay from his own pocket. He'll increase the price of groceries. See, because the cost of me running a supermarket is increased. So the cost to you will increase. You are students. You don't have an income. If you own TELS, suddenly that $7,000 or $6,000 you are receiving every year from TELS, you'll be able to buy less only. So because it's what you call a spiraling effect of having unchecked minimum wage increase. What we are saying is that minimum wage needs to be increased. But you need to do it in what we said, in a studied manner. You need to look at the impact of it. If you're going to increase it for minimum wage people, unskilled people, what will be the impact on the others who are skilled? How will you increase it? How much will you increase it by? Otherwise, it'll have a huge inflationary impact on everybody. It's very sexy, very cool to say we'll give $5. Everybody says, hey, yado. But what will be the impact of it? It's only a vote-buying gig. You had one of the Sodalpa people, I think it was Linda Tambuya, who gave a lecture at USP and said, we'll increase it to $4 an hour. Then she said in the same lecture, but it may have an impact on small businesses, so government will subsidize. How will government subsidize? Because the guy who's running a mechanic shop at the moment, he may have 2 or 3 people doing work for him. What will he do if he has to double the salary of people? Will he still employ them? The lady who currently is working at $6 an hour, maybe working in a factory or somewhere else, she has a house girl to look after her baby at home. Now the house girl may be living with her. You give her breakfast, you give her lunch, you give her dinner. You don't charge her for that. In Fiji, we don't do that. We give her accommodation. But suddenly we come along and said, hey, you have to pay her $5 an hour now. And this lady is working outside at $6 an hour. What do you think she'll say? I better stay at home to look after my baby. So you see, these are some of the things we have to understand. What will be the impact of it? So those people actually, when they make those claims, obviously I was asked this question the other day, and they said, all these political parties that are making all these representations, do they have to stick to their promise? No, they don't. They don't. You see, if it was Australia, if somebody stands up in Australia and says, I will now make tertiary university all free, you'll have people who will stand up and say, okay, you tell us where you're going to get the money from. Political parties, even though they may not be in government, have to account for it. They have to present the alternative budget. And that's when people will understand where they're getting the funding from. So, that's the situation as regarding minimum wage. And we have to be able to understand that. We're not saying it cannot be increased. It must be increased. We have to look at the impact of it, do a study. The other point is what you call social wages. The person who did the study recently said, in Fiji, you have to look at social wages. This is the policy direction we took. We decided a few years ago that we need to help people directly. So today, if you earn less than $30,000 a year, we pay 50% of your electricity cost. Today, if you have children, we pay for the school fees. We pay for their bus fare. We give them free milk. We give them 90,250 liters of free water a year. So that means a father or mother who earns now does not have to take out money to pay for school fees, so that money stays in the pocket. Does not have to pay 32 cents in a unit for electricity, 50% is paid for by government. Water, same thing. Bus fares, they don't have to pay. Government pays for that. So more money stays in the pocket. So in that way, you get what we call social wages. So rather than saying, oh, you have to pay for everything, we'll keep on increasing salaries, you'll have a huge inflationary impact. And by the way, the person who works for him or herself the lady who sells sasa brooms in Watuanga. If we increase it to $4 or $5 an hour, how will it impact her? Negatively. Because if she goes to the shop, and the shopkeeper has to pay $5 an hour to the person they're currently paying $2.68 an hour, the price of the groceries will go up. So what will she do? Is she going to increase the price of a sasa broom? Will you be willing to pay for the price of a sasa broom? It has a spiraling effect. So we must understand and study very carefully what are the ramifications. So that's why people need to, when we make this, it should not be done very carelessly. It must be done in a very concerted manner.
Last contribution to the people of Fiji. Just the price of maybe the smallest and the tiniest and the most frivolous question that will come now. Just the price on the price of sugar. Sugar, as we know, all know that it's a backbone, made in Fiji, product of Fiji. The price of sugar for many years now has never relented, still very high. What is the stand, the government stand on this? Can the price come down anytime in the near future? Or that's all.
Thank you. If you look at sugar, we have various contracts with people where we supply sugar to them, and obviously this is determined by world market price. The same way we have world market price for wheat, etc. Sugar now contributes approximately only 5% towards our GDP. The largest contributor to our GDP is tourism, a single industry, which is about 37%, Shiri? Tourism? 35% towards our GDP. The sugar industry is very interesting. We have aging farmers now in sugarcane industry. The whole system how sugarcane industry worked was, if my great-grandfather was a sugarcane farmer, everybody else became sugarcane farmers. Of course, in Vanuatu, when we had Niko Nawaikula and Garikau in TLTB, 50% of the land leases did not get renewed. So sugarcane production came down. Most of the people from Vanuatu are now living between Nosori and Suva as squatters. So of course sugarcane production came down, underutilized land, that meant we do not have huge sugar output. So there's a number of issues regarding the sugarcane industry.